Hello, welcome back. I'm Darren. And today we're just going to quick go over the end of the 1440p results. So hopefully I will finish that tonight. I have the Red Dead Redemption 2 and the Dragon's Dogma 2 to upload. I did kind of screw those up a bit, as in effectively I dropped my game audio for the Forza benchmark because I'd realised that in racing games the gaming audio is just crazy loud, which you can hardly hear me talking over it. And then I forgot to put it back up when I was doing the Dragon's Dogma 2 and the Red Dead Redemption 2. So in that there's kind of no game audio or very small amount of game audio, just my voice going on. But I don't know if I can really be bothered to record them again. It doesn't really matter, I don't think. So I might just upload those anyway, save me doing it again. And I'll be honest with you, it is so damn hot here today. I'm probably not even going to try doing anything certainly till late tonight once it's cooled down a bit. My poor i7 is screaming at me. So I'll upload those tonight, and I will hopefully finish, because I have downloaded now the update of the Call of Duty, which is really annoying because it's never done it before. Obviously I've got that downloaded through Battle.net, and that game constantly wants to update stupid amounts of file size. I know it removes stuff and then adds back on. But basically it decided to... I didn't even know it was an option. I didn't know you could do it. And I thought it was purely down to the update servers were just stupidly busy, as they tend to be. But it somehow decided to adjust its own download limit and limit the amount of download speed that I was getting. So I managed to figure that out, because that was an update that was running for like 5 hours and getting nowhere, and I just got fed up with it. So hopefully I can finish that one off tonight. And I thought I'd probably just go through what I've seen so far. And to be honest, with kind of what I'd already said leading up to it, it's pretty much exactly what I'd expected. Now I do obviously use both of these systems. Love them both. So the only difference is I do play them at 4K. And I'm not even sure if I ever even ran the AMD system at 1440p. I think I was already on I might have already been on a 4K monitor by the time I even built that system. So the only kind of real difference is, generally, as I'd already said, the XTX on raster performance is impressive, and it generally lands ahead of the 4080 in just pure raster titles. Now, obviously, I see that at 4K, but it's obviously quite small. But at the same time, obviously, benchmarks close up. You know, the higher the resolution, they tend to obviously close up. And at 1440p, it's probably a bigger margin. I don't think that's just down to possibly the XTX. I think some of that is to do with the 7800X3D as well, because I have checked in a couple of games, and that tends to be the fastest overall CPU within that game. So something like Dragon's Dogma 2, I think the fastest CPU in that game is the 7800X3D. Probably coming down from that would be something like a 14900. So, you know, there's a couple of games where the 7800X3D is without a doubt the fastest, and I'm not the second or third fastest CPU. So at 1440p, those margins grow a bit. So, you know, I think obviously the XTX will have a bit of a lead, and then the 7800X3D will have a bit of a lead. And by the time you stack those on top of both, it looks like an even bigger gap. But that's fine, because that's how that system's built. So it's a good indication of showing you how that system's built. The only kind of thing it's left me kind of wanting, I don't want to do it. I really don't want to take them out and swap them over. It's kind of made me think, because I love spending money, that I'd kind of like to build a test bench on the 7800X3D platform and then be able to really put stuff side by side, knowing that they're basically on the same CPU. I mean, the 13700K in its own system is really good, but it's not the king of gaming. But it's kind of, as an all-round system, I quite like it. I do obviously use mine for now a bit of content creation, and you can kind of tell straight away just on start up, boot up, opening apps and all that sort of stuff. The 13700K is a lot faster in those type of applications. Now, when I'm editing footage for this, a lot faster. If you're trying to do if you're starting up a new game and it's doing a shader compilation, I mean, the 7800X3D, you can pretty much like take the dog for a walk. It's like, that's not where it's good, but in game, it's obviously amazing. And the other thing that is obviously good is the power consumption. And that's kind of where the 4080 is good in power consumption. So it kind of left me getting to the end of it and thinking, I don't know if I would say I prefer the NVIDIA or if I prefer the XTX. But I'd probably think if I could choose out of these systems at the moment, I'd tear them apart and put the 4080 with the 7800X3D. And that would be kind of, for me, the ultimate low consumption on the GPU, low consumption on the CPU, and probably at native, I think, at pure raster, I think the XTX and the 7800X3D would probably still beat it. But then there's reasons. So kind of through these benchmarks, probably the kind of outlying games so far, the XTX has been ahead in the games that I expected. So something like Forza, which has kind of always been like an AMD title. I think it's slightly, I don't think there's much in it at 1440p. I don't think there's anything in it at 4K. But I think there's maybe a bit in it. It's hard to tell. Cars on the tracks, distance to them, where you are on the tracks. The performance in that game is so up and down. It's very hard to tell. Tarkov was a strange one, so I'm not even going to go through that. I'm going to kind of investigate that one a little bit after. Call of Duty, I haven't done the 4080 yet, but I can already hear the 4080 whimpering in the corner because it knows it's getting slapped. And it is getting slapped. I don't even need to do that one to know that it's getting slapped. And I think it's afraid. I'm not going to lie. Then you've got kind of a couple where, like Grey Zone Warfare, that is really let down by FSR. Because it's like, I would want to play that game at 1440p with having both the systems. I'm not playing that on the AMD system, no chance. Whereas kind of those other games, even if you've got like a 10 FPS lead on the AMD system, which is good, I'm not discounting that, but it wouldn't be enough for me to say, okay, I'm going to turn it off on this system and then load it up on the next system for that 10 FPS, because I'd probably be like, you know what, it's not that big a deal. Whereas kind of the Grey Zone Warfare thing for me kind of was, because the FSR and that's just so bad. And it kind of made me want to use a different upscaler, but in having to use a different upscaler, I could no longer use FrameGen. So for those reasons, you were kind of not just, you were just leaving a lot of performance on the table, because FrameGen in that game is actually quite good. And at 1440p, it's quite a good looking game. So it's kind of where I'd thought it would be, because upscalers at 1440p aren't kind of, I'm not saying they're bad, and a couple of games really surprised me at how good they were at 1440p, but it's not where they shine. Like at 4K is where the upscalers really come into play. So I think that's when it's not just a case of you might want to use an upscaler. When you're at 4K, they almost become, you're kind of going to need to, regardless of which one you're on. And then it comes down to the choice of, even if DLSS happens to not be the best upscaler, you have all of those available. But we'll get to that when we get to the 4K bench or the 4K tests. I'll probably do a full summary at the end of that, of how I felt, what looked good, what performed well. Like I said, I think they're both brilliant. And realistically, I think if you had either of these, for most people, I'm not saying everyone, I mean, obviously there's people that would have to have a 14900K and a 4090 or a 7800 X3D and a 4090 to be happy. But I think for the most part, you'd probably be happy with either of these systems. You're not massively going to feel like you're missing out. Like I said, probably, the biggest underlying one so far would be, you've got Call of Duty, which I haven't even got there yet, but I know that the 4080 is going to fall short on that. Whether it's a deal breaker would come down to the individual. You're probably, I think we were around, if you were on a 240 hertz screen, I think we were around, I'd have to look, I think we were around kind of almost the 240 FPS. And that was with the graphics cranked at 1440p on the 7900 XTX. So that might be of a lot of interest to a lot of people, and I can completely understand that, because you're not bothered about visuals at that point. Those people just want, obviously, high FPS, and you can kind of have a mixture of both. So you can pretty much max out a 240 hertz 1440p monitor and still have the graphics cranked. So that is definitely good for the XTX. And then you've almost got the cyberpunk of where the 4080's at. So, that was in a kind of a situation where at 1440p you had the tools that are there on the game. So you've got your frame generation, which works really well on that game. You've got DLSS, which I was actually surprised at 1440p quality. I actually thought it looked better. Now, it might just be that the image that I was in, maybe if I was driving around on a different area in the map, something might else be showing up, but it actually looked really good, which really surprised me. And I actually found I could see more details on the screen with DLSS set to quality than what I could see at native, which I was pretty shocked by. So, obviously that card was capable of obviously DLSS quality at 1440p. We were able to obviously turn on path tracing, turn on frame gen. You didn't have to turn on frame gen. Obviously, you can't turn on frame gen realistically in anything unless you've got at least a 60 FPS baseline. So you could play it without it at 60 FPS, or you could turn it on and you could take it up to, I think it was kind of 80, 90 maybe. So, and it looked good. Or you didn't have to go as far as path tracing. You could just obviously go with the ray tracing, whatever it is, Ultra or Psycho or whatever. Psycho, I think it's called, isn't it? You could go with that and have higher FPS, or go with that and then go with frame gen. I think it was up to about 140 at that, which is, I've never played Cyberpunk at 140. Obviously, I'm playing at 4K, so that's not really an option for me. But so yeah, that was impressive. I think the XTX actually had quite a decent lead over the 4080 at native in Cyberpunk, at 1440p anyway. And then obviously it just got destroyed at ray tracing. I mean, I say destroyed, it's not like it can't do it. It was just a case of, you could see where the impact of it having a kind of decent lead at native over the 4080 to it then having a decent loss as soon as, obviously, I think even at RT Psycho. So yeah, it's almost like a 10 to 20 FPS lead to a 20 or over FPS loss. So yeah, that's kind of pretty much where we're at. Like I said, I'll try and get the rest of those uploaded, and then I'll go through the 4K. I don't think it doesn't really appear that people are really taking that much notice, but I'm happy to just get them uploaded, and then people in drips and drabs might come across it. They might find it interesting. They might not. It's not the end of the world to me. I'm playing the games anyway, so I'll just fire it on there. And yeah, I thought I'd just say what I'd found so far. At 4K, like I said, I think at 4K, I don't know. I kind of go back to what I was thinking beforehand. You know, at 4K, if you want to play at 4K, I don't see why you'd do it if you didn't care about visuals. And when you care about visuals, which is why you'd want to play at 4K, I think realistically, you kind of want to have the best upscalers available and all the toys available. And, you know, have kind of at least... I think, well, I'd say that RT is... If you don't like RT, it's because you like frames. And if you're not so bothered about frames, then you tend to like RT. It tends to just be one or the other. So I think of RT as a visual enhancement. And that's, like I said, that's where to me they kind of split a little bit further apart. So at 1440p, a lot closer. At 1440p, the raster performance, if that's what you care about on the AMD, is really good, really, really good. So I can completely understand why some people would really want to go for that type of system. And then at 1440p, you didn't quite have the raster performance with the 4080, but you had the kind of you had the help from DLSS and stuff like that, which does actually look in a lot of games very, very good. So sometimes that can kind of be the difference. And yeah, like I said, I think that'll kind of change a little bit coming into 4K, which certainly does for me. Obviously, I kind of already know where we're going with 4K because I use both systems and I play both systems, and I've kind of already made my mind up on at that point, if you know what I mean. But like I said, in the future, I'm kind of thinking that I shouldn't, and the wife is gonna absolutely lose her shit if she sees another PC in this house. But I'm kind of thinking I'd quite like to now, maybe not build a system, but maybe even just have like a 7800X3D test bench, just so I can go through a couple of things that I'd like to do. Because someone else asked me today as well in the channel about FSR looking worse on NVIDIA than what it looks on AMD. It's not the first time I've heard this. I've heard this quite a lot. I don't see it. I'm not sure I particularly see how, but at the same time, I have heard it. I'd like to kind of cover it for him, but at the same time, I did reply to this guy and say, look, I'm not being funny, but if someone's already made their mind up that this is actually a thing, if I put up a video that makes it look like it's not a thing, it's very easy to just discount the methods that I've used to get to that conclusion, if you know what I mean. And obviously, video compression, recording compression, YouTube compression, the amount of things that a video has to go through from what I see on the screen to then get to you coming through a screen on YouTube. It's very, very hard. You're not watching what I'm watching, put it that way. So when it comes down to something like that, it's a case of you can either take my word or you can come to your own conclusion, and there's not really a lot I can do about that. So I'll leave it there. I'll get those videos up, and then if it's not baking hot tonight, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I might actually, because I've been doing this, I haven't really played anything, and I'm kind of itching to get back into... I want to get back into Elden Ring a bit, because I moved on with my character in Elden Ring. I moved on to the samurai build and I was quite enjoying that. But I also want to just get back into Pax Day, because I just want to finish off building my little house, and then I think at that point I'll probably just get bored and that'll be the end of that game for me. But I want to actually see what's happened in the area, because the last couple of times I managed to get back into it, just seeing what other players have done is actually like kind of mind blowing, and kind of where my building plot is. I ended up on like this elevated area around some sort of like some kind of like pond or kind of lake type thing. And I noticed that there's a huge cliff drop down to a valley with a lake, and the buildings down in that valley were becoming like castles and cities, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty mind blowing. And I haven't been in there for a couple of days, so I'm kind of interested to get back and just have a look what other people are doing, and I might just head down the valley and check it out. So I might put that up tonight. I don't know if it's a great deal of interest to people, but if I'm playing it, I might as well just hit record. It's no harm. And then hopefully now it's kind of payday if things aren't crazy. I need to sort out a webcam so that you can see me in all of my not so great looking 44-year-old glory. Yeah, but this is like horrible, and now I have to do stupid stuff on editing because a lot of the video content I'm posting up at 4K, but this is a 1080p camera, so I'm having to put different definitions of stuff and all the rest of it, and it just becomes a nightmare. So that's kind of where we're at the minute, and I'll probably leave it at that because we're 20 minutes in, and every time I say I'll do a 10-minute video, this is what happens. So yeah, I'll leave it there, and I will catch you in the next one.